really nice, because a podcast is basically just a radio show that's not live. That's all it is. And so you can podcast Minutes to Midnight. Go back to that, for example. They're on YouTube. They just have a static graphic. They upload the audio with a static graphic, and you press play on YouTube. Others are going to be on SoundCloud, which you can just pop onto your phone. Others are going to be on iTunes, which you can actually, without downloading, just go to iTunes and click play, like the New York Times podcast I was listening to the other day. Really newsy, good. I go to their page. I don't have to download anything. I click play on it, and I leave. There are a million ways to get a podcast to somebody. It's just making sure that they get how it's gotten and being consistent about it. If you're going to be on YouTube this week, stick there for as long as you can. Unless the listeners aren't there and there's another place that's going to do a better job of supporting you, even if it's paid, hey, we promote you through paid ads. That's the great thing about a lot of those podcast services, is that if you go on to a place like Audio Boom, they're going to work with you to help you monetize your podcast and help you advertise it. And you may pay $9.99 a month, depending on what level you go with and how much storage capacity you have, but they're going to help you in getting that out there. So people at this point just need to be told where to go, and then they'll do it. And it's really easy, especially if you have one of these rectangles in your pocket. These are really, really great for listening to podcasts. I do it in the car all the time. Not with headphones, though, because I made that mistake once, but whatever. So does that answer your question? Did that help you with what you need to know? Excellent. Were there any other questions? I know I'm probably running short. Yeah.
So the last question,
okay.
You guys feel free to ask some questions after, is what can the community here do for you?
What the community can here do for me is if you know somebody who wants to have a voice, but just doesn't know where to start. And I think that's a lot about podcasting, is knowing where to start. I'd love to help them know where to start. If it's just pointing them in the right direction, all the way to doing it for them. Think about who you know, and this could be somebody who maybe they have something really important that they can do in a kind of a long form series. Maybe this is somebody who is just an expert in a given field and they love to talk about it. The point is that a podcast can be anything from just a fun hobby to this is another marketing tool of my company, just like TV, print, traditional media, social media. It's something that you have to advertise, but then you get people who are going to come to it. So think about who you know, companies you know, that would really benefit from this. They have a lot of content. They have a lot of things to say. They have people in their organization who are interesting and fun and compelling. People that would be interesting to hear from. We want more friends in this world, and we want, largely in 2018, a lot more digital friends. So bring your digital friends to me. If I'm right for them, great. If I'm not right for them, we'll find out and I'll point them in the right direction. Does that make sense? Which is what my ego likes to tell me rather than what reality likes to tell me. But thank you in any case. And I'm going to talk to you today about why you need a podcast, because I am Paul the Podcast Guy. I also do voiceover, production, writing, commercials, all that kind of stuff. But the main thing I want to talk to you about today is why you need a voice, about why it's a good idea for a company to have a podcast, why your company specifically should have a podcast. Are you just going to repeat everything I say for the entire time? Thank you. So, what is a podcast? Now, most of us probably already know what it is, but for the uninitiated, it's basically like a radio show you can listen to whenever you want. It's like Netflix versus network television, iTunes versus having a band follow you everywhere to play songs when you ask them very nicely, but they just play whatever they want when you ask. So the point is that you have choice. And as you probably surmised, the word podcast comes from the word iPod, coined by journalist Ben Hammersley as a portmanteau of iPod and broadcast. Yes, the name will change eventually because we still call it podcast for some reason, even though we have other possible terms for it. No, I don't know necessarily what that will be. Yes, whatever it is, it will be annoying when it changes because we'll have to learn a new term for it. But people have actually suggested other things. Things like netcast, handy if your podcast is actually about nets. Some have suggested making pod a backronym, meaning portable on demand, and just keeping it that way because change is hard and nobody likes to do it. Other possibilities include vodcast, which is a video podcast, and it's an objectively terrible name, as well as webcast, because apparently we want things to be vague and not describe the actual thing we mean. So podcast is probably going to be here for a little while longer. This is what it looks like when you podcast, looking at your microphone. Yes, you can actually do it in your bedroom, but it's better to have a dedicated space. More on that in a little bit. But some of the essential things that you need to do a podcast are a microphone, a computer that records your stuff, and actual stuff to talk about. And I'm going to talk about why you should have a podcast. And yes, I literally mean you. Podcasts let you talk with your customers in a fun way before you ever actually have to talk to them. You get to position yourself as an expert. You are the expert. You know it, I know it, your family knows it. Look at you, shaking hands like an expert. You're a cool guy. Help you have a consistent presence in front of people, even if your business isn't taking pictures of old cars and displaying phones with weather apps on giant TVs. A podcast lets you talk about your craft. When we think about all the things that we love to listen to, Dave Ramsey talking about finances on the Dave Ramsey Show, Oprah talking about Oprah's masterclass. Maybe you like fitness, Ardella Training with fitness instructor Scott Iardella. It's a great one. At Guitar Center with Nick Harcourt for guitar nerds like me. TED Talks. What they do is they talk about their craft with passion. They present information in a compelling way that keep people coming back for more because they're the experts. And they become a friend with your customer before you ever actually have to be a part of their lives. The best YouTube personalities, your favorite movie and TV actors, favorite bloggers, columnists, you like them. They feel like they're a part of your life. So number 3, you position yourself as an approachable expert because you combine number 1 and 2. And when you combine 1 and 2, it helps you make money, which is what I like to help people do. Are people really listening? Not to me. Are people listening to podcasts? Are you going to do this the whole time? Thank you. Let's talk about some statistics. How many people are actually listening to podcasts right now? 64% of Americans have ever heard of podcasts. Fun fact, that's more people than know what a podcast is, than know who the vice president is. Another fun fact, that fact isn't fun, it's terrifying. 44% of Americans have ever listened to a podcast. 144 million people, 12 million more than in 2017. 26% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's up 24% from 2017. 73 million more people. There's no joke on this one. I just want to get you some stuff to know. 1/3 of Americans, ages 25 to 54, listen to podcasts monthly. Actually, it's 32%. Not exactly 1/3. Don't be Captain Technical on me. Podcast listening among American women has jumped 14% in 1 year. 2017 to 2018, 21% to 24%. That's huge growth in this. Men, you stayed flat at 27%. I'm disappointed in you. Step up your game. 23% of Americans have listened to podcasts in the car. That's a jump from 19% the previous year. Side note, don't watch Netflix in the car. I've done it. Don't do that. My insurance company really hates that. There are only 550,000 podcasts. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of podcasts out there to compete with, but there are 152 million blogs out there. Chances are your company has a blog, and chances are really good that people kind of ignore it because it's not personal. You don't hear voice, you don't hear tone, you don't hear inflection, you don't hear meaning behind the words. I don't get to really know you. It's the difference between having a friend and having a pen pal. Who are you going to actually listen to more? Who are you going to pay attention to? Who are you going to interact with? Your friend, not the pen pal. Podcasting is still in its infancy. It's where everyone's going, but not many are. How do you listen to podcasts? Your smartphone, your computer, your tablet, your smart speaker such as Alexa, an actual iPod if you fellow dinosaurs still happen to have one of those, I do. Burn it to a CD or copy it to a tape or a vinyl record if you feel like it. Make your own and recite it to yourself complete with sock puppets. Whatever you want to do with it. Where can I listen to podcasts? Your car, your home, your office, jogging, in your doctor's waiting room, on the bus, on a train, where the rain stays mainly in the plane, on a plane, actual plane. Really anywhere, as long as you realize that everything after number 2 requires headphones. Seriously, don't be one of those people who listens to a podcast at full volume in public. I had that happen in a doctor's waiting room, and I wasn't interested in the podcast. Who hosts podcasts? Which one is right for you? This is one of the tougher questions. Once you get to the point of, okay, I want to make a podcast, I want somewhere to host it. Every single one of these places has a different aim to help you. Some want to help you monetize your podcast. Some want to just offer you free hosting because you're just doing it for yourself as a hobby. Some places are already really well established. Like Libsyn has probably a lot of the podcasts that you want to listen to. My personal favorite, WTF with Mark Maron, is on Libsyn, but all of them have their own benefits and, well, detractions, sadly. What podcast should you listen to? But not right now, because that would be really rude. Some really good ones. You want to learn a different language? Duolingo podcast. I don't know how many of you saw what's his face from Tesla, Elon Musk, on the Joe Rogan Experience, but he talks politics, he talks everything. Stuff you should know is how it's made for people who don't want to have to watch TV. And of course, you got entrepreneurship with Business Unusual with Barbara Corcoran. TED Talks, which I love because they're required to be under 18 minutes and I don't have a whole lot of time. Business and Biceps, if you want really buff people telling you what you should do with your business. Making a podcast sounds fun. Thanks, Paul. Great. Where do I start? Do I get a microphone? What do I do? Can I just talk into a tin can like I'm in a Hardy Boys novel from the 40s? Plus, I don't have to do a lot of content, do I? A lot of creation and writing. What if I'm afraid to speak in public? Also, will my gilded pineapple help? Never fear. Sorry, let me do that better. Never fear! Ooh, I like the reverb in here. This is nice. For Paul, the podcast guy, is here, because like a good neighbor was already taken. The point is, I'm here to help you with that. What am I going to do? Everything from I talk to you on the phone about what equipment you need, software recording, how to treat your sound space, content creation, how and where to post and maintain your podcast. I talk to you on the phone, we never see each other again, I just see that your podcast is climbing in the charts a few months later. Training. We meet in person. I talk to you, hey, how do I edit audio? How do I go into, well, whatever it might happen to be? If you're a Pro Tools guy, if you're Audacity, Adobe Audition, any of the really good programs out there, how do I use it? We'll talk about that. Public speaking and voiceover techniques. Maybe you want to talk about how to get up in front of people with a microphone, because really, this isn't much different than this. You'd think it would be, but the second you step in front of a microphone, you kind of have to turn it on. You have to go on. You have to turn on the personality, because this thing isn't going to do all the work for you, sadly. And equipment troubleshooting techniques, because here's the thing. If you've ever had to deal with microphones, if you've ever had to deal with equipment, it's going to break. So what do you do? What backups do you have? How do you deal with that? But maybe you want me to do more. Maybe you want me to partner with you in the creation of the podcast. I'll help you record it. And by help you record it, I mean I'll record it. Maybe you want me to edit your podcast. Maybe you recorded something yourself, but you don't feel like going through that hour-long block of audio and getting rid of all the flubs, the breaths, making sure that it doesn't have a hiss behind, all this crazy stuff that you have to do with editing that takes a lot of time. I can do that. Maybe you don't want to go through the hassle of looking up what is the right platform for me, where can I host it, and then writing a synopsis, uploading it, uploading the pictures of the podcast as it happened, maybe uploading a video of the podcast. You don't want to deal with that. Cool, I like dealing with that. That's fun. Maybe you need somebody to speak on your podcast. Maybe you need another person, a co-host, or even a host. Maybe you need somebody to do everything for you. Cool, I like doing this. In case you didn't tell, I like talking a lot. It's fun, and I like making things that help other people tell their story. And anything in between. How much am I going to help you? What am I going to do? One phone conversation, a partnership that lasts for years? I don't know. Maybe we talk on the phone and you don't want my service. Cool. Maybe you decide now you don't want my service. Fine, that's okay. It really is. Maybe this podcasting thing is not right for you at this moment. That's okay. It really is. But for those who want to build up that friendship and that partnership with people, consistency. Creating a podcast requires consistency. Good consistency. I love despair.com. It's one of my favorite sites. I love those posters. Because with creating a podcast, you do have to do it the right way. You do have to upload it at the same time every week. You have to have new content. You have to have compelling people on it. You have to be consistent with it. Now, you may be wondering what I charge to do this. You may also be wondering about my wonderful, glorious beard and how I do this to maintain this. Well, I will tell you those secrets later, because right now we're not talking about that. And you weren't thinking about it before, but you are now. Prices for all this cool stuff. Let's say we do the consultation. I go do some research for you. I spend an hour on the computer looking through all the different podcast platforms that might be right for you. I look up what equipment would be right for you, depending on your skill level. There are things that are so easy. You plug the microphone into the side of your computer, you press record, and you have a file, you have a podcast. That simple. There are way more complicated things, and maybe you need to have 5 people on your podcast. Maybe it's just you. I don't know. Let's talk about it. And me going and doing all that research and presenting that to you, sending that all to you, $25. And all the front-end research is done for you. You don't have to do it. I do that because that's probably what I was going to be doing anyway. And it's a lot of fun. Per hour editing cost. If I sit down and I take your hour podcast and I trim it, get rid of all the fluff, get rid of all the flubbed questions, make sure I get all the breaths out, compress it, make you sound like James Earl Jones circa 1977, $40. On-site visit, you want me to come to your business, do recording there, $40. Want me to be on the mic? Want me to do it for you? Want me to talk? $40. Training? 1 hour training? $40. I like the number 40. I don't know why. It just felt right. You want to talk on the phone for 10 minutes about whether you should podcast? Priceless. Like literally, it's actually free. There's no price. I just like to talk to people about it. So you want to talk on the phone about whether a podcast is right for you? Let's just talk. That's just fun for me. There's more than just podcasts too. Let's say you need long-form narration, record your voicemail, voice a commercial, create a commercial. Fun stuff. Want me to record some guitar stuff or write a song for you? Want me to compose a blog post for you? Want me to do some public speaking if you don't feel like doing it? Sure, cool. Anytime you need a voice, the most important thing you can remember out of all this is if you need a voice, that's what I'm here for. So, why should you trust me? What makes me so darn special to know what I'm doing with all of this? 10 years with those guys, daily content creation for a 4-hour talk show, creation of commercials, Addy award-winning commercials, 10 years of doing basically podcasts that were live 4 hours a day, aka radio. That's all podcasting is. In case you need me to reference the earlier slide that I'm not going to scroll all the way back to because that would take another 10 minutes. The important thing is knowing that this is not untrodden ground, that this podcast thing, this creation of daily content can be spread out. You want to podcast this only once a week? Cool. That's a lot easier than doing it every single day. A lot easier. Plus, you know you're going to get results. If you don't feel like reading through all of this, that's really cool. We're actually videoing it right now. I'll put all these up later. But people like Julie Still Rollin, who I helped to create a podcast, Samantha St. Raymond, who you've seen in here, created a commercial for her. She absolutely loves it. Jeff Wayne, old sales manager at News Radio 1620. I was his go-to creation production guy. It's something that when you have the passion for it, you know you're going to get a great result. When you want to go to someone who does something well, you're looking for that person who spent hours and hours and hours sitting alone in a room, creating, doing all this for fun before they went out and started doing it for work. Because let me tell you something, working in radio did not get me wealthy. Don't make a mistake. That doesn't mean I'm wealthy now. I'm just saying I didn't get wealthy. But I want to help you have fun. I want to help your customers think you're fun. I want to help your customers get to know you because you deserve a voice. And if you don't have a voice, let's get you a voice. And maybe I'm not the right voice. That's okay too. I will suggest to you who might be the right voice because I'm not the only person that can come to your place with a microphone. I'm just the one that's going to have the most fun doing it. Get one of my cards before you leave. If you're interested in this at all, if you want to hear more about podcasting, or if at the very least you just need something to wrap your gum in, I have a bunch of cards right here. And on the back, you're going to see a little pay it forward section. Write a short testimonial once we're done with whatever we do, even if it's me telling you that, hey, I think that you might be better served over here. You might need this other service that's not me. Put that on the back and give it to somebody. I would love for other people to know that I'm not going to waste your time. Because I'm here to make your business better. I'm not here for your money. Money's nice, it pays the bills, but ultimately you're only going to get satisfaction out of this if you're enjoying the process too. And I'm going to make it as fun as I can possibly make it for you. Or just do everything. Thank you, guys. And I think this is the obligatory ask a bunch of questions section. I don't have a clock on me unless you don't mind me looking at my cell phone. But if you have any questions about you guys will give me the sign. Excellent, cool. Back in the radio days, it was just, oh, the music's playing. I'm done talking now, I guess. So what questions do you guys have for me? What can I answer for you that you want to know?
What kind of metrics do you see on kind of a return on investment or companies that have podcasts, like you said, PaulStradden
Right.
versus not?
Well, the most important return on investment is I come from the world of radio and traditional advertising where you're throwing out these messages to people and you're getting reaction back from the community and you're getting reaction back. The return on investment for you is that you personally will be the one, what's your business? Actually, let me ask you that first.
Real estate.
Real estate, okay, great. Do you like talking about real estate? Is this a place of passion for you?
Sure.
Cool, excellent. So the return on investment is you're going to get into places that you would not have gone otherwise, and there are going to be people who could hear of you who wouldn't have heard of you otherwise. Going into this market that's largely untapped, there aren't a lot of real estate podcasts. Now, if it sounds like I'm not giving you an exact number, it's because, again, this is still in its infancy. This is something that's really beginning and starting up. We are in the era of where you have to be likable. And companies are just now realizing this in the last couple of years. So if you take a look at more established shows like Dave Ramsey's show, I can give you a really good example from the transition of radio to podcast. The Dave Ramsey show probably has a lot more listeners. In fact, I can guarantee you they have a lot more listeners on iTunes than they do on traditional satellite terrestrial radio. Oprah Winfrey has as many listeners on her podcast as she has on her TV show. Well, viewers versus listeners. The impact is that is where it's moving. We already have self-driving cars. People aren't going to need to listen to the radio. People are going to listen to what they want. They're going to scroll through for podcasts while their Tesla is driving themselves down the road. The important thing is to jump into a place where people are already going. And businesses have always been very good, the best ones anyway, about going into a new area. If you look at social media is probably the best example I can give as an analog to really the shift in businesses. If you take a look at the Facebook and Twitter pages of places like Wendy's, for example, they position themselves as fun, as personable. They respond with I and me and talk to you. It's not we, us, Wendy's, it's I, me. I'm the representative of Wendy's, and I'm going to throw shade at McDonald's because that's going to get me a bunch of shares and that's going to get much more exposure. Coming from the world of radio, this is a lot like asking, is my radio commercial going to get me a certain return on investment? The important thing is that your name is continually in the community because advertising is something where you don't necessarily give people, especially in a growing area, a fixed number because you'll either be way under or you'll be way over what the estimate could possibly be. But the important thing is that people continually hear your name and your name is synonymous with expert. And in a podcast, people hear you, people get to know you, and people want to know you. Because you're not just throwing it at them for 30 seconds, you're not just throwing it at them at 11 a.m., you're throwing it at them whenever they want it. So for a return on investment, the important thing is, in this community, you are likable. The return on investment comes as people get to know you. And this is just one of the many avenues to do it. You also make cold calls, you also make phone calls. I'm going to talk forever on this because this is a subject of passion for me, so I'm going to stop talking. I hope I've come close to answering your question, and I'm going to let another person ask one.
Do you handle any advertising for podcasting? Or
One more time?
how do you advertise your podcast, and do you handle that?
Okay. So for advertising a podcast, it's a bit like advertising anything else. You have to go through traditional and newer means. Social media, where you are, let's say you have a lot of Facebook followers. I know that a lot of people are kind of abandoning Facebook, but that's just because Facebook is skewing older. The reason a lot of people are abandoning Facebook is because grandma and grandpa are on Facebook, and I don't want grandma and grandpa to see what I post on Facebook. So I'm going to go over to Instagram, which is still owned by Facebook, ironically. Or I'm going to go over to Twitter. But you need to advertise it in the means that makes sense for you. What is your podcast going to be? If, let's say, okay, I'll talk from an area of personal passion. I'm a musician. I love music. I have always grown up performing music. I'm still in bands today. I listen to a lot of music podcasts, and where I see those podcasts advertised are in the places that I go. If I go to Guitar World's website, I'm going to see a little sidebar that's going to show me, hey, Pod Minutes to Cast Night. The new episode is out now. They're talking about Van Halen 3 and how much it sucks. That's what I'm going to click on. It's like, oh, cool, that's for me. You go to the areas that make sense for your business. You can advertise your podcast on radio, which is kind of a bit like a cashier telling you to go use the self-service checkout, but it's an avenue for you to talk about it. It's an avenue for you to get into a place where people are now to get them to go where you want them to go. You can do beyond social media advertising in Pensacola, things like this, word of mouth. I haven't personally advertised any of this yet, and yet I have people coming up and talking to me about it because I go to things like this. Especially in Pensacola, that's really important to get out and network. Because part of the whole podcasting thing is that people want to get to know you. So what's an effective form of advertising? Well, a lot of it's word of mouth. So you want to go where people already are that are in the demographics that you want. For me, Guitar World magazine, Guitar World's Facebook page, those kinds of traditional places that you're going to do. You can do sponsored ads on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the social media. And if you really want to go whole hog, you can get into magazines, you can do radio interviews, you can go on TV, as long as you have something worthy of them to talk about. Does this answer your question? Because I could talk about this for another hour. I will keep going forever on this, and I want to give other people time. Anybody else have any questions? No more questions, really, absolutely zero. Give a new one.
Benefits of a podcast versus like a YouTube channel or blog?
Okay, that's a really good question, because if you're doing something that's very visual, a YouTube channel might be better for you. So and again, I'll go back to the music thing. So for me, a podcast that really works with no visual is Pod Minutes to Cast Night, one I just mentioned. They make fun of and they review old, really terrible rock albums. That works because there's no necessary visual component. If you have something that's visual, like you have a fitness place, right? For you, a visual might be better because you want to show how an exercise goes. But it's largely the same thing. I mean, I mentioned earlier that vodcast is probably going to become some new terrible term. But you're going to be able to show people what that exercise looks like. You can upload that to YouTube, and you can even do both. You can have a video where you show how these exercises go, and then you can have a podcast where you talk about your experiences and you talk about your time doing what you do. The reason that podcasting is nice is because you don't have to do video. Coming from the world of radio, yes, I got up early to go and do the morning show. It was terrible. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I could do it in shorts and a t-shirt because no one would see me. Whereas my friends over at WEAR, they had to be there at 2 a.m. to get into makeup and a suit and all that sort of stuff so that the video component would work. So when the video component works, great, do it, absolutely, and it's worth it. But when you don't need that, a podcast is so much easier. Because I can come into your office, set up the whole podcast rig, you come in and talk, you leave, and I take it all down, I go back to my house, I edit it, I post it up at the particular place that you want in the particular time you want, and you don't have to think about it other than that. With a video, you got to get the location, you got to shoot, you got to get the lighting, you got to get, and maybe even makeup, you got to make sure you get the sound on site. There's a whole lot more to it. But for you, a video might make sense. Does that make sense? Does that get you? Cool. And you had your hand up one more time.
How are you going to educate your customers that, hey, you can listen to a podcast driving, you just click it and it downloads? Because when I think podcasts before, it's like you have to download it when you're at home for an hour, put it on your phone.
Right.
How are you finding that the barrier to entry is with consumers?
Really nice. Because a podcast is basically just a radio show that's not live. That's all it is. And so you can, podcast Minutes to Midnight, go back to that for example. They're on YouTube. They just have a static graphic. They upload the audio with a static graphic and you press play on YouTube. Others are going to be on SoundCloud, which you can just pop onto your phone. Others are going to be on iTunes, which you can actually, without downloading, just go to iTunes and click play, like the New York Times podcast I was listening to the other day. Really newsy, good. I go to their page, I don't have to download anything, I click play on it and I leave. There are a million ways to get a podcast to somebody. It's just making sure that they get how it's gotten and being consistent about it. If you're going to be on YouTube this week, stick there for as long as you can. Unless the listeners aren't there and there's another place that's going to do a better job of supporting you, even if it's paid, hey, we promote you through paid ads. That's the great thing about a lot of those podcast services is that if you go onto a place like Audio Boom, they're going to work with you to help you monetize your podcast and help you advertise it. And you may pay $9.99 a month, depending on what level you go with and how much storage capacity you have, but they're going to help you in getting that out there. So people at this point just need to be told where to go, and then they'll do it. And it's really easy, especially if you have one of these rectangles in your pocket. These are really, really great for listening to podcasts. I do it in the car all the time. Not with headphones, though, because I made that mistake once, but whatever. So does that answer your question? Did that help you with what you need to know? Excellent. Were there any other questions? I know I'm probably running short. Yeah.
So the last question,
Okay.
you guys feel free to ask some questions after, is what can the community here do for you?
What the community can here do for me is if you know somebody who wants to have a voice, but just doesn't know where to start. And I think it's a lot about podcasting is knowing where to start. I'd love to help them know where to start. If it's just pointing them in the right direction, all the way to doing it for them. Think about who you know, and this could be somebody who maybe they have something really important that they can do in a kind of a long form series. Maybe this is somebody who is just an expert in a given field and they love to talk about it. The point is that a podcast can be anything from just a fun hobby to this is another marketing tool of my company, just like TV, print, traditional media, social media. It's something that you have to advertise, but then you get people who are going to come to it. So think about who you know, companies you know, that would really benefit from this. They have a lot of content. You know, they have a lot of things to say. They have people in their organization who are interesting and fun and compelling. People that would be interesting to hear from. You know, we want more friends in this world, and we want, largely in 2018, a lot more digital friends. So bring your digital friends to me. If I'm right for them, great. If I'm not right for them, we'll find out and I'll point them in the right direction. Does that make sense?